Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. We are live. It is January 1st, 2026. Welcome to the new year. Some of y'all might have gotten here several hours ago, depending on where you're listening to us in the world. If so, I hope everybody had a wonderful and, of course, safe New Year's. I hope a lot of people get to take the day off today. I would imagine that's a not so much regional, but hopefully a popular around the world, a day that people can get to rest, reflect, think about what they want to accomplish in 2026. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing on this show all year long. You can expect us to be here Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., just like we are right now. We have no intentions of slowing down. In fact, we intend to speed up a bit in terms of our thoughts for the show. And we'll get into that at some point as we start to formalize some of that about how we think about the show. But regardless, you could expect to see some or all of our smiling faces that you've grown to hopefully know and love and not hate over the last couple of years, and you can expect much more of that in 2026. So to kick off 2026, there's Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. I think it's just the three of us today, based on what we had asked tomorrow, and then I think Karl will be back tomorrow, and Beth, you're out, and so we'll figure it all out. But we will be here. We'll be here every single weekday as we have been since the start. And today's 620. Hold on, I'll tell you. It is episode 629 today. 629 shows without missing a Monday through Friday. Now, because it's the new year, I think this is a great time to kick off with how we normally do things with our news stories, and talk about anything that's been in the news. I'll tell you guys, I peruse the different newsletters that I get, and one that stood out to me this morning was AI Breakfast. And so, funny enough, 99% of the time, my AI newsletters will go into a separate Gmail called forum or whatever it's called, right? It'll auto move it over there. But every once in a while, these AI emails, even though the last 30 of them went to the right folder, every once in a while they won't. And so, funny enough, AI Breakfast just landed in my updates folder for whatever reason, but it actually made it stick out. It actually was the reason I ended up opening that one up first. So maybe, who knows, maybe it's fortuitous. But they had a couple of different things in there. They did talk a bit about Manus and Meta, which we talked about, I know, even when I haven't been on the show. So I won't spend too much time there. Another one that they mentioned on there that I just want to throw out is from XAI, where they are building. Well, I'll just read what it says. XAI. This is a X post from Elon Musk, to be clear. And this was from 2 days ago. It says XAI has bought a third building called Macro Harder. You gotta love them. With two R's at the end, not ER, but just double R, because of course. We'll take at XAI training compute to almost 2 gigawatts. And then it goes on to say try Grok, right? With a K. Yesterday we were talking about Grok with a Q and all the things going on with NVIDIA, and we'll come back around to that. So it says the company has acquired a third facility near Memphis to expand its Colossus supercomputer. That's a name, Colossus. I guess I haven't heard that. Targeting nearly 2 gigawatts of training capacity and a long-term goal of running up to 1 million GPUs. Now, we talked a lot about GPUs yesterday and where they're good or not with the other Groks, so that'll be interesting. They go on to say in the newsletter here, the new site expected to be converted into a data center in 2026 will sit alongside XAI's own natural gas power generation, highlighting how frontier AI is increasingly constrained by energy, not models. And then this part I thought was interesting. XAI's push into enterprise markets has been slower than expected, with reports pointing to limited experience selling into large organizations. The company is now betting that a massive compute can close the gap with more established rivals. So I find that something just to talk about right there, because this is two paths. We've seen this, in the past. More compute gets you where you want to be, but there's also diverging paths that say, well, that's not everything and all things, but it's certainly important. And then, if we're to believe the way that AI Breakfast is laying this out, because it is them in their newsletter, that XAI is maybe not getting the market that Anthropic perhaps is inside of enterprise, and so they're trying to win by sheer compute, by volume, by size, by data center. That's the move. And we know from 2024 probably how fast they stood up that first Memphis data center. It was, I don't know, like 90 days or something, wasn't it, Beth? It was an absurdly fast time.
Right.
you guys think going into 2026 here, is compute still going to be the main driver for all these big companies, or are there too many other diverging paths now that it's just one of many?
I think compute is still a driver. Certainly, we've talked about systems that are getting more efficient to use the compute that they have. But part of what came out about that his post and like what they've been doing, for me, part of the story is how dirty the energy is. They're literally just like moving natural gas places. I mean, you might as well fire coal plants in order to like power your thing.
I'm sure
They
some of it is.
also, I believe they have 5 locations. I think they move. I think there's one across the border in Mississippi also
Okay.
because of energy regulations. Like there, I mean,
Oh, sure.
it's just wild, and I don't think that if you're macro hard or macro harder is a direct shot at Microsoft,
Microsoft, right?
right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way to show enterprises that you're like the adult in the room and your
Well,
stuff is better. I don't.
yeah.
I mean, whether you like Microsoft or not, I think that is not an enterprise friendly thing to do in public.
And I will add to that really quick before you guys take on other news stories. And also, Andy, I'd be curious to hear what you have about compute, but I'll just add this really quick. I did not see validation of this, which is a good thing, I think. But there was a guy posting saying that on Grok, it is now possible. We kind of know this would already been possible with AI, but it's about how easy it is to be possible to essentially say, show me this person without clothes on, and not that that's a new thing, right? AI is in the space and those different types of adult industry type things, but this is obviously concerning for anybody. But I mean, certainly with somebody who has a daughter and has, photos shared and things like that. Now, obviously, it's a AI representation. That doesn't mean it does any less harm. I have not seen this, and like I said, I kind of am happy I have not. But somebody was posting about it yesterday, so I at least want to bring it up on some negative side of Grok. Is that, to your point, Beth? Is this really the company that you want handling your LLMs and how your company does data at the enterprise level? And I have to think, oof, maybe not my choice.
All right, so I think that I don't know. I'm not going to touch that one.
I'll go back to compute.
I've always kept my clothes on in any public appearance. So what I wanted to say is that inference demand is only going to increase. So compute and data centers to support inference, I think are going to, they're going to exhaust the energy availability in the United States and globally, and then they're going to move up into space in order to try to solve that problem. So I think it's a long-term issue. It is currently, I think, going to damage the economy for energy, and we're already seeing that somehow electric pricing regulation isn't effective for consumers, and household electric prices are going to go up dramatically as a result of the increasing demand and decreased supply, if you will, because much of that is being funneled over toward, inference compute. So anyway, that's my short takeaway on that. I will now jump into one of the news items I want to talk about, which is another kind of impact that AI is having, not just on the cost of electricity, but on jobs. So there's several different things that I came across this morning. First of all, a TechCrunch article from yesterday that says investors predict AI is coming for labor in 2026. And, this has been foretold, by us and others that, there is a decline in entry-level job positions as a result of AI, substantially replacing some of those early and simpler applications of human talent in the workplace. But this was an interview among a bunch of different venture capitalists, and they basically all agreed with the November MIT study that said that about 12% of jobs could be eliminated by AI and probably will be. And so anyway, many companies are already talking about AI as justifying some of the layoffs that they're doing, not just removing the front end, but hey, we're going to cut down on all of that. And so TechCrunch is making that point. I wanted to jump over to a very interesting thing that just came out of Lenny's newsletter. And this is relevant to your space. Lenny's newsletter is a, let me just pull this up here. This is Lenny Rachitsky, who is, I think, a really interesting product guy, and his newsletter and his podcast are really important. I mentioned this a couple of days ago. Anyway, he does an interview now in his latest newsletter and provides the video of that podcast, the title of which is AI is Taking Over Sales Jobs. And the fellow who's being interviewed is a guy named Jason Lemkin, who's the founder of SaaStr, the world's largest community for software founders, and a veteran SaaS investor. He's deployed over 200 million into B2B startups, et cetera. So he's a qualified person. And he talks about how 20 AI agents in his organization are now managing with just 1.2 humans. They've calculated the application of the humans and supervision of that to do work that previously was handled by a team of 10 SDRs and account executives. So you're seeing this kind of automation. In fact, you're involved, Brian, and so I'm going to be very interested in your perspective on this. But in this long conversation, this fellow Jason shares with Lenny his hands-on experience implementing AI to run his entire sales organization. That's what's happening. And then finally, I just wanted to say, I also came across an interesting news article that's on this same general theme, which is a San Jose startup called Hyphen has moved its AI automated fast food make line from pilots into real kitchens. This company has been invested by Chipotle, which put 25 million behind the company, and also a competitor of Chipotle called Cava, which invested 10 million in this company, Hyphen. So the machines that they put in are AI driven, and they assemble the bowls for Chipotle every 10 to 15 seconds out of sight, under the counter, handling the most repetitive part of that process. So think about fast food, line service doesn't require a lot of human training, but humans have been doing that behind the Chipotle line for a long time. Well, that will go away. So that's kind of the theme of the news items that I kind of pieced together here. So at the beginning of 2026, we have a forecast that AI is coming for labor, that AI is taking over sales, SDRs and AEs. And if you were hoping to be a line cook because you couldn't find a job out of college, sorry, that's going to be automated as well.
I'll touch on two of the three, the last two or three. Okay, in the sales side, I think look, my hands aren't clean. I know what I build in AI and sales and stuff, but to sit here and say, oh, but what I do in terms of efficiencies for companies won't ever really harm somebody's actual job. That's untrue. That's false. And so you can't sit here and say, like, I build all these efficiencies and I help business without also realizing you're part of the disruption. I worked in the mortgage industry in 2008 because I was young still. And I'm sorry, not 2008. That'd be too late. Excuse me. 2001, 2002. Now, post that, we saw all the news, and everybody remembers the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that were around then, obviously, and the mortgage crisis that happened or whatever. I worked in that. I sold mortgages. I closed mortgages for Wells Fargo Financial, and my hands weren't clean in that either. Although, again, trying to do the right thing, you find out you're part of a system that perhaps harmed people along the way too. Well, AI is the same thing. I like to think that we all do. A lot of what I'm doing is good. I can see how it helps a lot of salespeople. I train a lot of salespeople. I'd like to think in my years of doing this, I have and will continue to help people actually keep their jobs because I'm training them on how to be that 1 to 20 agent controller, right? And understanding how to build agents and what that means. But I'm not going to sit here on January 1st and say, the work that I do won't have some negative impact on somebody's job. And the reality is I probably will, unless that person reached out to me and said, hey, what you did for my company caused me my job, I probably will not know the name or face that it happens to. But I think it's important to call it out and say, hey, it exists. And I am working in this area and I do build these solutions. And there's potentially some friendly fire that goes along with that. On the food side of things, I definitely think we will continue to see, I was just talking about yesterday, seeing the robot cleaning the floors in the Quick Trip. Well, now we know that there's restaurants we've talked about in the last 2 years that are flipping burgers and stuff. Chipotle famously makes all their stuff fresh in there. So everything from putting the bowls together, but also back of the house, which is kind of front of the house, right? Cava, same thing, where they're actually making fresh guacamole. I'll give you another example. I have no idea if they're working with AI automation, but I learned this not that long ago, that Cheesecake Factory makes all, except for their cheesecakes, which is always the irony of it, makes all of their food in-house. Now, everybody famously kind of knows how large of a menu Cheesecake Factory has. And that's not to say that it's being built from scratch or made from scratch at the moment you order it. But this chef on TikTok who used to work in there was explaining how, you have a soup chef. And that soup chef comes in every single day and they make 40 different soups. And those soups have certain shelf lives. And then that rinses and repeats. So yes, you're eating from scratch soup, but it also might have been in the fridge. It's a day or two old or whatever the case may be, right? And I thought, that's an astonishing fact to me that has been going on or whatever. I would have never guessed that. Funny enough, the cheesecakes are flash frozen and shipped in. So Cheesecake Factory does not make the cheesecakes in-house, right? Anyway, I say that to say, Andy, like you look at a system like that and you go, well, how many different parts of that operation could be touched by AI robots? And the answer is 50, 75% of daily prep could probably eventually be touched by that. And the question now is, does the consumer care? Does the consumer, let's just take Cheesecake Factory and say all three of us go into our respective local Cheesecake Factories. And we all say, you know what, the food was really high quality. And then a month later, we find out that, Andy, your Cheesecake Factory is all robots. And Beth, yours are 50-50 and mine are 0. Mine had all human workers on it. But we all come back and give a review and say, that was some really fresh food. Literally cheesecake blasphemy, Jen is saying. I'm teaching people on day 1 here, guys, of 2026 here. I'm learning you. My point is this. Will the consumer care? Would the three of us get back together and say, oh, funny enough, I just went to Cheesecake Factory. And then Andy, you're like, yeah, you know what I found out though? I really love the meal. Now I'm iffy on it because I found out robots did all the prep work. So it was still fresh. They still cut the avocados. They still made the soup, but it was a human hand didn't touch it until it was plated. And maybe even that. Do we care as consumers? And will that affect the way we think of from scratch, freshly made food?
Well,
You're muted,
Andy, you're muted, so I'm going to take your air.
Go for it.
You snooze, you lose. There you go.
I have the anti-dog muting on here.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, Greg says, no, we do not. Okay, go ahead, Beth.
Okay. I think it's going to intersect with the expense of food, right? I think we care a lot when prices are the same, although robots probably make all frozen dinners, right? Like in reality, right. There's a lot of food that we're already eating that isn't really touched by a human hand. But I think a restaurant that is able to keep prices at a lower level or the same level because it's done some automations in this way, I think people would just need to vote with their their wallets and their bellies, right?
Mm.
Like I think caring to a certain extent in that context is a privilege.
Yes. I'm not a big foodie at all. My wife is. So you would not really find me in a Michelin star restaurant unless somebody just literally took me there and paid for it. I have nothing against them, but Beth, I think it comes down to where people expected human creativity and craftsmanship to be part of it. So because I've seen like YouTube videos of things, and obviously the plating experience, and they got the little tweezers and they're like, think, and it's this like tiny dot of something, and I go, all right, not really for me, but God bless them, they're basically artists putting this plate together. And yes, I could see how that would feel like a bait and switch if I was to find out that a little tiny robot hand went dink and plated my plate, and I may go, you know what, I came in here because I wanted the best of the best food and I wanted the experience. So you guys are really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I found out the robot has it. But I think to your point, Beth, like if it's a chain restaurant and you and I care about cost and quality of food, and the restaurant goes, we can get lower costs and higher quality and more consistency, and we'll never use a microwave because we have all robots in the back. And then you gotta go,
there's another factor that has to come into this conversation, which is there's quality and there's price, but there's also speed, because in food service, you've got this little window at lunchtime and this little window at dinner time, and your revenue and your profitability really depend on how many seats you can turn over. Now, in a fast food restaurant like Chipotle, we're not talking about seats that are tables with waiter service, but imagine that the automation systems that are going to be applied to fast food particularly actually make it possible for you to not wait as long as you have to for the completion of your order. It's not all that fast in some cases. For example, this is not fast food strictly speaking, but I recently went into a place in San Jose, which was a highly rated burrito place, and it took maybe 30 minutes for my burrito to get completed. And I was just, standing around in there waiting, and that was too slow. And it was not busy. They did a beautiful job. It was the best burrito I've had in many years. Yeah. But I wouldn't go back just because it took way too long. Now, if they could, with the automation, accelerate that process so that same high quality, it was not inexpensive. It was $16 for a burrito, but it was worth it. Okay. But it was the cost of my time was not. So I just wanted to really highlight this point that that company I referenced, the Hyphen company, is speeding up the Chipotle process. So your line up there is not going to be as slow moving as it is now. And so there's that aspect. Now, just in general, with robotics taking over lots of different roles, I watched a very interesting video from a guy who is living in China, in Shenzhen, and with his family. And he's an English teacher over there, and that's how he's making. He's my young guy, but he's got a child and a Chinese wife, and he's living in Shenzhen. And he gave us a tour on this video of the apartment that he lives in, the building, going to the shops down, at the street level. And it was, frankly speaking, utopian. It was amazing. And one of the things that caused me to remember this was that in the lobby, there's a robot, not a humanoid robot. It's just looks like a box. And when deliveries like Amazon, but the Chinese version of Amazon, I forget what it's called, but Alibaba is the company that owns it, right? Well, when a delivery comes like that, the service person who got it to the door of that apartment delivers it to the robot. And the robot then goes and gets into the elevator with the packages and goes up to your door and then drops the package at your door. So that's just a standard part of apartment living in China. at least in these big industrialized cities, not the rural parts of China, but in industrialized cities. And this just leads to it. China is going to lead the way in terms of automation using robotics, that will replace a lot of work that is being done by humans today. And so they'll be at the vanguard of how to moderate the impacts on society for that, because they're simultaneously in the larger economy of China, they're having a consumption slowdown by the humans, right? The humans have to buy in order to keep the engine of a capitalist system going. They don't call themselves capitalists, but they have a capitalist kind of economy running over there. So, that's the rub, right? How do I automate everything and still provide income sufficient to create a consumer demand economy? Mm-hmm. And so lots of things woven together here. But back to robotics, that's going to be one of the factors that seriously impinges on the employability of humans.
And now that actually was part of my question about also, do we care if it's automated in the US? My sense from the days when I worked in food service is that the job impacts are very local, right? Mm-hmm. So by eating at the automated restaurant, you are literally impacting your neighbors in a way that you might not be as directly with some of the other tools or systems.
Sure. No, I agree with you, especially as my daughter gets up into that age, and those would be the first jobs, right? Now, it's not, I haven't walked, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I have not personally walked into a local business around me and seen any robotic arms making coffee or anything, but it's just a matter of time. It'll pop up in Tampa. Before Tampa, it'll be in Austin. Before Austin, it'll be in San Fran or Seattle, right? Like, this is just the way, or it'll be near you, Andy, or something like that. And you'll be like, hey, you know what I just saw? And then cut to 9 months later, and it will be where I am, just like the robotic massage. Right? Remember they escape and like it made its way across the country to little old Florida, and then to Orlando, not even into my area, into Orlando, 2 hours away. So yeah, I agree with that. And it's definitely like, as I have a daughter that would be moving into those areas, I imagine probably not her specifically, but a 15-year-old in 5 years might be going, not only is the job market dismal for me, but now 50% of the, or maybe that's high, 30% of the jobs I would have qualified for 5 years ago no longer exist. They're now automated.
So there's one other piece to this, and I know we have other news, although not a ton of news. Yesterday was New Year's Eve.
Hey, it's free flowing, right? So whatever we want to talk about.
One other piece of this that I'm seeing comments starting to say more about is that you don't have a sous chef just because you want the vegetables chopped. You have a sous chef because that's how you make master chefs, right? That's a process that you go through. You don't have junior associates in your law firm because that's the only way to get that job done. You want people to be senior lawyers, and those are the paths to that. And I don't see that talked about in the same kind of way, right? We're saving money now, we're going to automate this out. AI can do this thing. But the only way you get to be a senior in the knowledge and pattern recognition and experience is to have senior level knowledge and experience, right? And if you take out the opportunities for that, I think we're going to see something in 10, 15 years that's going to be a little bit of regret that we're having a hard time filling those kinds of positions.
I want to push back on that a little bit. Potential pushback. So this is a weave into a different news story, and I'll come up with a news story here in a second. That's about the ACCA. If you're wondering, like, what? I'll talk about that in a second and how this factors in. But here's what I'm thinking, Beth. Potentially, there were jobs that at that junior level, whatever that was, let's just say requiring long division. And then calculators became not only something that existed, but ubiquitous. And then solar powered on your desk, right? And it was just so easy. There was a $3.50 thing. Like everybody could literally have a calculator. So then you go, okay, well, there had to be, and I don't have a specific detail, but there had to be jobs where people said, yeah, this is true. You will eventually get up to master. And we've now redefined mastery no longer includes the need to demonstrate mastery in long division. And that's overly simplistic, but just for everybody's visual here. Long division on a piece of paper, you no longer have to be able to do that. And now 20 plus, the senior masters of that craft are going, excuse me, I had to show it on paper. And you go, yeah, but now we're at such a point that it just would be a waste of time because this tool will always exist going forward. We're not reversing out of calculators. In fact, they're only going to make things easier and easier. And by the way, they're 100% accurate all the time. This is not necessarily an AI word, correlation, right? But calculators are, if you typed it in right and you didn't fat finger it, it's the right answer, right? It's math and coding rather. Okay, so doesn't that mean, Beth, that for other areas, sous chef to chef, that in time, what's defined as what a sous chef can do, skills with a knife, cutting skills. I don't know. I'm not in that industry, but let's just say that's what it is. Being able to touch a piece of meat, knowing that it was medium rare. I saw Gordon Ramsay do that one time. Sure. Great. Is that what that means to be a master chef at that level? But if AI comes in and those tools are so common and so used at a certain point, don't you just redefine what it means to be a master chef? And yes, there's going to be older chefs, men and women, who go, this is kind of BS because I definitely had to know how to do that. And now you're seen as on par with me, despite the fact that you no longer have this skill set. But at some point you got to go, yeah, but why? Why would we spend the time learning this skill set unless I am always going to be doing the kind of chef where I do live demonstrations and people are paying for the actual human experience, in which case, yes, sure. That's the whole point. They're paying me to not be AI, right? And so I need these skills. But not every master chef would need that. So doesn't that happen across all industries? Doesn't that happen where the idea of mastery, we've seen this time and time again, has to get rewritten because new tools come in place that essentially make some of those rudimentary repetitive tasks irrelevant. There's no reason to know those anymore. Cursive, right? People talk about cursive writing, kids and cursive writing or whatever. I see both sides.
Yeah, I got away with not having to learn cursive writing. I had to learn it, but I failed it, and I have had a successful life since. So it is not the dearth of everything. I think it's an interesting question, Brian. And I think food is a specific industry that's kind of interesting because it's about taste, right? To a certain extent, it's about taste. It's also about nutrition. But the idea, I'm not sure that food will be, let me say it differently. I think that food will be one of the last venues that will be like, you know what? The robot tasted it, therefore it's good. I'm sure there is a pattern recognition for the very best pizza or fusion or whatever.
Wine, sommeliers, right?
Right. That could then move across. That knowledge could then spread really easily in a chain, and you could get the same kind of experience. But I'm not sure humans are ready to identify pattern recognition as much as we have it. I think experience and, I have a real gift for this. I think we're going to find that all of that is pattern recognition, and AI is better at pattern recognition than we are in the context of learning it, keeping it, and then being able to teach the next thing, right? Teach someone else about it. But
by the way, I realized I didn't do my actual news story, so let me do that really quick. Like, this is about a new. It's not okay. So this is the connection. It was about accountants. Yes. So the ACCA is the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, the world's largest accountancy organization, will stop offering online exams starting March 2026. And their reasoning is just straightforward. It's just too easy to cheat with AI. And we can try to keep getting ahead of it, but the people who want to cheat will continue to be ahead of us. And so it's a very short article. This is from the Decoder, again, from the same, but the link was from the same AI Breakfast newsletter. But basically they said, look, we can't do this. They serve 260,000 members and more than 500,000 students. This says, despite efforts to combat cheating, people who want to do bad things are probably working at a quicker pace, Brand said. And Brand is the CEO. Helen Brand is the CEO of the ACCA. I think this is just a sign of the times. And so we will definitely see more and more and more in-person testing. I also think for everything that this takes away, this actually provides opportunities for new micro environment, hyper-localized is what I'll say, places where tests can be taken. If tests can no longer be taken online and validated at all levels, not just the ACCA, where it's already said, by the way, that the AI can pass the CFA exam. So that's the problem, right? But my point is like, okay, so what if I have a small coffee shop, but I also have like another 100 square feet that I don't necessarily need? Can I make that a testing center and increase my revenue for my local business by just having a quiet room or a AI space, a safe space room where somebody comes into my local coffee shop and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for my 2:00. I have to take an exam. And they're like, okay, great. You have to give us your phone and you have to do this, whatever, so that we certify it by some standards. And now you go into this soundproof booth that has zero Wi-Fi. It's like, it's blocked. And hand over your stuff just like you would for a testing center, just like when I had to be an EMT or otherwise. I think this could open up potential more local business ideas on how people could help this with this growing trend, which is.
Well, I admire the way you squirreled out of that that one.
What do you mean squirrel out of it?
Well, because I think it's the the reality is that the certification of humans in a set of skills that are possible by AI.
Okay.
That just doesn't compute. Like there's not a huge business demand for that, right? So anyway, but I think that's interesting. It raises the question: what would actually qualify as something that humans can do that AI cannot? That we need to actually get validated certification for. And
right.
So, yeah, there has to be supervision. And what does that supervision look like? I like the idea of the SCIF, right? A secure, compartmentalized environment where you can't get access to any kind of external communication. And that's the little place where you are, while being watched by cameras and or, by humans, you actually have to perform something in what, handwriting, or do you get access to a keyboard at least so that you can type your answers? Anyway, that I don't see that emerging as a real thing, because again, I don't know that how many people are actually going to want to go through the process of certification like that, accounting certification, when in fact AI is probably going to remove that. But I also predicted that lawyers would not be, going to law school anymore because of this, and I was wrong. So at least in the short term, there is a need for this business idea that you have. It's another $1 million idea in a time where AI has to be measured in billions of dollars.
Look, Andy, I think you're right. Like, okay, so maybe not the CFA, but there are a multitude of different types of tests that might want to move away or back to only exclusively in-person testing, right? Whatever that means. And there probably already is governing bodies that determine, to your point, how many cameras, what does it look like? What can the Wi-Fi, right? I'm sure there's governing bodies that probably already do this type of stuff, right? So my point to saying this is, I just came back from a trip up to North Carolina, and we stayed with my wife's side of the family. And the daughter has now completely come out of high school. It makes total sense for her because she's doing dual enrollment, but it became a point where like high school was actually in her way. This doesn't mean this is for every child out there, but in her particular case, it makes perfect sense. It fits her perfectly. And so now her whole point was like, they were basically making her go sit in a room in high school that served no purpose, right? And so they eventually went and talked to the principal and said, "You see why this doesn't, like, it doesn't make sense." And the principal kind of went, "Yeah, do what you got to do." And she was able to successfully pull herself out of high school so that she could continue doing the dual enrollment things they need to do for college, right? So my point to saying that is there's a perfect example of somebody. Now, maybe she has access to college campuses where these things may exist, but if she just happened to live where I do, in this part of suburbia, Tampa, I don't have a readily accessible place where I could just pop over the same way I could go to Quest and do quick blood work or something like that down the street. That's really easy for me. I don't know of a place where I could readily go pop over and do a quick test or something like that in a certified room or whatever. So you may be right. Maybe there's nothing here, and maybe it doesn't make sense for larger tests like CFA, but something tells me in my brain, I bet you there's a lot of variations of these types of in-person tests that span.
I think there may be, and just in terms of the real estate opportunity, I doubt that it's going to be something as cottage industry as you're describing with a space in your personal
maybe not
place. It's going to, there's plenty of malls that are going out of business,
right? Yeah.
There's a lot of space out there.
Yeah. But, no, that's fair. That's fair.
But this is also going to bring hopefully a conversation about what you're testing. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to push back, and then you said for your EMT, right? So that you have to be a person who does things with other people in person. That is the job, right?
And by the way, it's part of the test. Some of that is physical and some of it is written, right?
But for the, I'm sorry, Salesforce is going to disown me, I'm sure. So the Salesforce test is a multiple choice test based on your ability to memorize things in Salesforce. It's slightly easier to memorize them if you've done them physically in a installation, but it's not there. Passing the test does not necessarily mean anything other than that you were really great at that memorization feat. Right? However you got to there. And why would you memorize all that when now you can literally just ask AI and get the instruction, right? Like if I have spent my time building some things that I thought were interesting, that's a much better indication for you that I am the admin for you. And the fact that I spent a ton of time memorizing things that I'm mostly going to forget after the first year of working, because most of that isn't used in a particular instance based on what your business model is. I feel like we're going to get to that place of like, okay, because don't sit me in a room with a live person and make me color in dots with a number 2 pencil, right? Like this is not telling you anything.
Right.
This is a hoop that I need to jump through.
Yeah. A lot of SaaS is that way, by the way. The SaaS certifications and stuffs are very similar to that.
Right.
By the way, I'll throw, and this is the last idea on this. I was just thinking it's really hard to throw in, resumes. They just go in the piles, and we have a huge resume problem. And like, by the way, what does a 15-year-old do on a resume or, for an entry level job or whatever? Yes, it may not be a cottage industry thing, but I do see a value of where companies go, hey, we've partnered with such and such company. They have a location 20 minutes from you. You go there. And by the way, it is AI, and that's part of the vetting process, but it has nothing to do with what you write down on paper. And you can't cheat it, because even if you are talking to an AI, you don't have Wi-Fi or your access, right? Those have been restricted from you. So really what we're doing is we're saying, hey, I want to know, are you the type of 15-year-old that's going to show up even when your friends have a party on the same night? Are you the type of, and those are probably questions that aren't that specific. There are other things that could be asked. And you may say, well, you can do it enough times and learn the system and cheat it. But I bet you that's a much more valuable way of finding qualified workers for entry-level positions, and could potentially unblock this problem we're having where people apply to 100 different jobs and can't be or don't get past anything. They never hear anything one way or the other, versus doing, maybe some of these types of more or less personality tests and stuff. So anyway, neither here nor there, not really news, just like the way my brain works. And I go off and think about these types of ideas and how to solve problems.
I want to just
go ahead with another one.
Flesh it out with just an idea that the human proficiency testing and validation that the educational systems have provided to some degree over time, they have to change now in the world of AI. And the larger question is, what proficiencies do humans need to have going forward in order to be useful and compensatable, if you will? And I think the leading one of those is proficiency with AI. So it's kind of a circular thing here. AI is disrupting it, but the only way out of that for humans going forward, unless you want to be among the great masses who are going to have to be supported somehow, by universal basic income or some other system of redistribution, the only way around that is to become really proficient with AI and be able to demonstrate that skill in a live way, much as you would if you were a PhD candidate and you have to go in front of a group of professors and present your dissertation and then have them challenge it. And you have to make answers in response to each of these very, very smart people on the subject area that you're claiming to have some expertise around. And you have to do that live, real time, no notes, right? You're just talking to the professors, but you have to defend your thesis.
Right.
Anyway, I think that showing proficiency that way, there's going to be a new model for that when it comes to AI.
Right. And even now, I'm guessing that when you prep for that dissertation defense, at this point, you're arguing, like you've set up a couple of AIs to ask you some compelling questions. Right. There was a post, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who posted it, but basically on X, they were saying, they were talking about like the summarization. Can you summarize this book for me? And they're like, okay, let's just imagine that you had a friend who agreed to read any book cover to cover, really understood it. The least interesting thing you could ask that friend is to summarize the book for you, right? Like that, I would hope that sort of thing, that kind of conversation could then become the test, right? Like I'm going to share with you the really in-depth conversation that I had with the AI that was helping me get the most out of this book. That's a much more interesting usage, I think, and more personalized, which is ultimately, what we want from education. I'm not sure that was what education wanted from us, but I do think it's what individuals want from education, is a personalized path.
Hey, I just want to take a quick moment and say welcome to some new people that are in the chat that at least I don't recognize some of the names. So appreciate y'all being here and being part of the conversation. Hey, maybe that means that, you had the day off, maybe because it's New Year's Day. Maybe that means you have your own resolution to try to understand and be part of AI more. And if that's the case, well, then you're in the right place. And so, for anybody who might be listening to this for the very first time today, because they just decided I need to get on, and one of my resolutions is to figure out AI. Hey, great. Welcome. We're glad you're here. By the way, you're not behind. So let me just say that. We would all say that. You're not behind. You're fine. We talk in the bubble, as we say a lot, in the AI bubble. And so we're always, as the part of the show, is to have open and honest conversations. Not, by the way, not to always agree or disagree with each other, just to have good conversations about it like we've been doing today. But this is what we do every day. We talk a little bit about the news because there's always something going on in AI news and it moves quick. But we have, they weave and they pivot and they go into these other pontifications about, the food restaurant that I didn't know we were going to talk about today, really, or education. So I just wanted to say before we move on, or I guess as we sort of wrap up today, because we're kind of on time. Number one, thank you for being here. Thank you for all our long time listeners and contributors and stuff. We love you guys to death. But welcome to everybody who might be new today and maybe hearing this for the very first time. As I said at the top of the show, this is episode 629. So we do this Monday through Friday. It's not always the same DOS crew, DOS meaning Daily AI Show. So if you hear us say that acronym, that's what we mean. The DOS crew is us. And by proxy, by extension, everybody in the chat and in the community, which by the way, you can join us in our community. If you can't join us live on the show, you can always go to the Daily AI Show community.com, which will take you to a Slack join page, and then you can join our community free. It's just another opportunity for you to be part of the conversation. Alongside of that, we have two other things that are just on hiatus at the moment until January 11th. Between my travels and things like that, and I'm so glad I did this. I took a break from the newsletter as well as the Conundrum episodes, but they're coming back. We'll be doing those all of 2026 as well. So you can always check out past Conundrum episodes. They're the ones that go out on Saturday mornings. You can find those on the podcast platforms because they're more listening than visual. And then the newsletters typically go out on Sunday mornings. You can go sign up for that newsletter right now by going to the dailyaishow.com, and you'll see a place where you can sign up for the newsletter, and just know that you'll get the next one will be around just before mid-January. So those are all the things.
Let's say that all of the newsletters are available, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
So at which actual URL do you go to see this? So it's worth going back and looking at these once a week digests of what happened in that week or what was important and worthy of observation. What's the right URL, Brian, to go and actually see the list of former newsletters?
That's a good question. I'm trying to log in. We use a company it's a popular newsletter company called Beehive. And I'm going to see if I can find that for you very, very quickly. So,
or stay tuned tomorrow where that will be revealed.
We'll also probably post it in the Slack.
Yes,
right, inside the community. We'll post that.
Okay, I did find it. So it would be. I'll put it in the live chat. But again, like I said, it's going to be through Beehive. So it's going to be the dailyaishow.beehive.com, but you would have to know how to spell Beehive. So I'm going to throw that into the chat. But for anybody listening and be like, wait, I want to know. Beehive is BEEHIIV. BEEHIIV. So that would be the dailyaishow.beehive.com. And I believe that should take you to the post. You might have to do a /P to get to the post on here, but that answers the question. And you said that, I was like, oh man, I'm not going to know this. But you're right. They are there. 82 episodes, 82 newsletters are available for your browsing if you like. And then get on the newsletter list so you can get all the new ones when they come out. You can be one of the first to read them on Sunday mornings when they go out at 8 a.m. And again, I'm just going to check my date here to see.
And while you're doing that,
sure.
I want to mention to those of you who are listening here live on and from LinkedIn, the chat that you can see in LinkedIn doesn't include all of the comments that are shown or they're coming in from YouTube, which is where the largest group and the steadiest group of live observers are. So we love LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's platform doesn't give you access to that sort of group chat that's going on. But if you go over to YouTube, you can join the group that's live, talking to us and talking to each other about the discussions that are underway.
Yeah, good call out there. Gwen says so many teasers. Yeah, you know what? We got to throw this out. We don't talk probably enough about the different things we have going on with the show. But hey, there's going to be new people listening all the time, so we want to make sure everybody knows.
And 2026 is going to bring something really compelling, which Brian is working on right now.
Yeah,
which is a vibe-coded new website that will have functionality that will aggregate and make easily accessible the entire history of AI from August of 2023 as delivered by this show, Monday through Friday. And you'll be able to interact with that data. It's an amazing longitudinal collection of observations about AI that we've done. And now it's going to be retrievable. It's a retrieval augmented system that it will make it easy for you to interrogate all of us collectively and actually come up with a condensed set of clips that you can see about any subject you want to learn about in AI.
Yep. And I'm glad you said coming in 2026 and not like this month.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy, for not putting that stress on me.
It is likely just the first of many really amazing things coming out of this show in 2026. So
I
glad to have
agree
you with us.
wholeheartedly. I'm very, very bullish on the show and where we're going with it. So any last thoughts before we wrap it up, guys?
Nope. I'll see you
Nope.
Monday. I'll see you Monday. I will not see Brian Monday.
Yeah, I know. Work, travel. This is the time of sales kickoffs, SKOs as they're called in my industry. So if you're in the sales side of the industry, you probably have an SKO to go to. And from time to time, I get the opportunity to go on site and be part of those and do the AI stuff with the sales team. So that's actually fun. And so I have a couple of those coming up in the next few weeks. So I will be out. But yes, me and Andy will both be back, as well as Karl, tomorrow for our January 2nd show, and on from there. So have a wonderful New Year's Day. If you're like me, enjoy all the college football, so much college football. Georgia plays at 8:00 tonight. And so we will be at our local hangout where we do host the parties, rooting on the Bulldogs. But I hope you have fun and you have some relaxing times today. All right, that's it. Don't know why I was going to say love you, but I love you guys. I do. That's what I was going to say. Love you. So love you.
I'm getting misty.
Bye.